Hello, a quick welcome to Audrey from California, the Thomas family, Neptune 36, who is watching from the Mojave Desert, the area we'll be talking about today. Hello to the McLeods in Minnesota, to Kylie and Eiley from Arkansas, and Hassan, Queen Donut, Natalie. It is good to see you guys here today, and a special welcome to you if you are watching the recording. This is a broadcast we are doing from my brother's house, and our internet connection is a little different than usual. So if something goes wrong and we have technical issues and it drops out, we will repeat this class in a couple weeks, so don't worry.
But I think we'll be able to get back on right away if it does. Kaladin and I are excited, and what I want to know is how come I got the short chair? I feel like I'm a little shorter than your science mom.
Because I need to be able to be close to the controls to show you all about the Mojave Desert. The Mojave Desert is the hottest and driest desert in North America. And I'm going to show you a quick picture of a map about where it is. If you have ever been to Las Vegas, then you have been to the Mojave Desert. It encompasses the lower part of Nevada, part of California, and a little bit of Arizona. It is one of the smallest deserts in North America, and it has some really interesting plants. Because if you were living in the Mojave Desert, you need to be able to handle temperatures above 115 degrees Fahrenheit or 46 degrees Celsius. That's really hot. And you need to also be able to handle freezing temperatures occasionally. That's a huge range.
Oh, wow.
And if that wasn't hard enough, sometimes it goes more than 150 days without rain.
Wow.
In fact, last year it went more than 250 days with no rain.
Crazy.
Yes.
I don't think there are many plants that could possibly survive on that long without rain.
There are quite a few plants, and they have some incredible, almost like superpowers that help them survive. We're going to go through 6 of them, and as we go through each of these 6, we'll learn some pretty cool things about how plants live. If you have our notes, we have a little list here, and you can add 3 more plants after this video to complete your own botany bingo card. And then in a couple weeks, we will play a fun game where you can test out your new plant identification skills. So, are you guys ready to meet the first plant?
Yes.
The first plant is my favorite, and it is called the creosote bush.
I knew it. I knew that's what it was going to be.
Creosote bush is an incredible plant, and it has a very strong smell. And that strong smell is the reason why it got its name. Because do you know what creosote is, Math Dad?
It's the name of the bush. I don't know. What is it?
Creosote is the black tarry substance that builds up inside a chimney. And it has kind of a burnt, strong smell. And when Europeans first came across and they discovered the creosote bush, they rubbed the leaves and thought, you know what? This smells like the inside of a stinky old chimney. It smells like creosote. And that's how it got its common name. And I see several questions about our move in the chat. Kara, we are in Utah right now, but we recently left Nevada. We have lived in the Mojave Desert for 9 years now.
Yeah.
And the creosote bush is a bush that every time it rains in the Mojave just releases this amazing smell. The smell of rain in the desert is different from the smell of rain other places because of the creosote bush. And this bush has really tiny little leaves. The leaves are like 2 little wings that are stuck together, and they're smaller than your pinky fingernail. They're just teeny tiny, but there are lots of them all over the bush. And if it has just rained, they turn green. And if it has not rained for a few months, they actually turn brown. They turn kind of brownish and they get smaller. And if it's really dry, the creosote can drop all of its leaves. And then when the rains come again, it will just grow new ones. So super tough plant.
Yeah.
In fact, it is the only plant that has survived a nuclear explosion.
Whoa, because they did the atomic testing in the desert.
They did the atomic testing in the desert in Nevada. And at the atomic testing site, there were several atomic bombs that went off that just killed all of the vegetation around. But the creosote bush grew back. It was the only plant that grew back.
Wow.
Amazing, right? Here are what the flowers and the seeds look like. And to get to know a plant, you've got to be aware of tiny little details. Like the flowers, there are 5 petals and they're not connected. And the seeds, they almost look like tiny little snowballs. They're really kind of cute. Now, if you look at this creosote bush, you might see some big circles sticking on the branches. And these are not seeds. This is actually the home of a tiny little fly.
Whoa.
And that tiny little fly is called a midge. And it has almost like a superpower. It takes a little spore of a fungus, and then it lays eggs and the fungus inside the branch. And that fungus tricks the creosote bush into making a home for the fly.
So the fly's not building a nest there. It's laying a larva?
It lays eggs and it lays this special fungus, and then the fungus says, ah ha ha, I'm in a symbiotic relationship with this fly, and we shall make a big home for all of these little eggs and protect them while they turn into little caterpillars, and then they come out. I'm going to show that picture one more time, and look at the one that is on the bottom. That shows you a midge, a tiny little fly that's coming out of that little round ball, and that ball is called a gall. That rhymes, Matt. Dad, can you follow that up with another sentence that rhymes?
The ball is a gall, and that's not all. Boy, are you tall.
Nicely done, Matt, Dad.
Thanks.
So here is that picture again, and take a look on the side. You see that gall that was made by that fly and its special partner, the fungus. And then when we zoom in close, there is a little animal coming out. You can see its little kind of brown head, and then the wings have not yet extended out.
In the bottom right corner,
yep.
That's the bug coming out.
That is right.
The what fly?
The midge fly. The creosote midge fly. Usually, if you find those galls, they will be brown, because after all the flies hatch out, the little thing just dries up and turns brown. But if you find one that's green and you look very closely, you might see the little holes where those baby flies will come out as soon as they hatch out from being caterpillars. Isn't that amazing?
So does it kill the bush then?
No, this I've never seen more than just 2 or 3 of these little houses on a creosote bush, and the creosote bush is so strong. I think it would take more than a sneaky fungus to wipe it out.
Huh.
So in the desert, because water is so scarce, plants either have really shallow roots that go out that will grab the water as soon as it rains, or they have a really deep taproot that goes down deep to find water. The creosote bush does both. But it is so good at getting the water out from the surface that other plants can't grow around it. So when you are driving across the desert and you look out and you see creosote bush, it almost looks like it was planted, because you see them just regularly spaced along the desert, but they were not planted. They are there because, and here's a picture kind of showing you, see all of those bushes and how they're just sort of spaced evenly?
Yeah.
And it's all because the creosote bush is so good at pulling water out from the ground.
All right, so I saw a question in the chat asking, like, how long do the midge flies live from Neptune?
That is a great question. I am not sure how long the midge flies live. I would need to look that up. And I saw a couple other questions about how common creosote bushes are, and are there lots of them? They are one of the dominant plants in the Mojave Desert, and they've been there for tens of thousands of years. They have done radiocarbon dating on these creosote bushes, and the really old ones will actually grow out in a ring-shaped pattern, and they date back to the end of the last ice age. So, and then Megan wants to know, when are we drawing? And the answer is right now. We are going to draw our first plant, the creosote bush, and if you have printed this page, you can draw along with us. But because we don't want to take too long to do this, I'm going to show you how to do the drawing quickly, and I recommend coming back and watching and pausing the video to do your drawing. But if you want to try to draw it fast, you can. And in fact, that's the challenge I'm going to give Math Dad. Math Dad, while I play this video, you're going to try and draw the creosote bush with a puppy on your lap. Good luck.
Oh, I'm doomed.
So here is our first little video for drawing the creosote bush. Oh no, Math Dad, my video's gone, because when our internet timed out, it left. Hold on, you guys. I'm going to grab it. Technical difficulties.
Oh, so I don't get extra time?
Nope.
Man.
You get extra preparation time where you can worry about how this is going to go.
I can mentally panic knowing that I'm going to have to perform in just a moment.
Here you are. Whoops. So first, you want to draw 2 ovals that are connected together. And again, I told you this is going to go kind of fast, but that's okay, because you can come back and you can watch the replay, the recording, and you can pause it. So our leaves are 2 ovals and then dots at the ends, and you connect them. The flowers, we want to draw 5 ovals around a circle, and that makes our flower. And then for the seed, if you draw 2 circles and then do little fuzzy things, that is going to make your seed. And now for the bush shape, you guys should see Math Dad's face. He's like, too fast, too fast. And if you're trying to draw along with me, you're probably saying too fast as well. But remember, you can pause the video and you can do your drawing with the video paused. And we will be posting and sharing some small little drawing tutorials later on as well. But during our class, I didn't want to take 10 minutes to draw each of these 6 pictures, because then our live stream would be more than an hour long and that would be too long. And when you make your drawing of the actual bush, you just want to have some thin branches, because they're going to come from a common area, but a lot of them will go all the way to the ground with just a few branches. And there we go. There is our creosote bush. All right, Math Dad, you ready? Show them what you did.
Oh, that's what I got done.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. So here we have the leaves, and you see how they're joined at the middle. And then we have a flower with 5 petals, and then we have a seed.
I was trying.
Not bad, Matt Dad. The seeds are circular and they are fuzzy. And the bush, I think, looks most excellent.
Well, thank you.
Now, remember, the key to drawing is to take your time. So if you're rushing and trying to draw as fast as Math Dad did just there, it might not look quite the same as what you're going for. But if you take your time and look for shapes that kind of match, like draw ovals for the leaves first, and then after you draw the ovals, then add in the dots. So I'm going to play that first part one more time. See, so I draw 2 ovals and then a little box, and then I put a dot at each of those points, and now I'm just going to connect those dots. Looking for things like that helps with drawing plants.
So this isn't necessarily plant related, but I think it's kind of cool. You drew really lightly with the pencil before you then drew dark. Is that some artist trick?
Yes, it really does help to sketch lightly first and then draw the dark lines. That's a good tip. All right, are you guys ready for our next plant? And again, I know that these drawing demonstrations are going to be fast, but you can always pause the video as you go. And we will be sending and posting more pictures and tutorials later. So our next plant is a cactus. And this cactus has some really sharp spines. This is the cholla cactus, the teddy bear cholla, and it's another one of my favorite plants.
Oh, it's a nice cuddly teddy bear, is it?
It is not a teddy bear you would want to hug. This looks fuzzy, and when you look at the big bush, you think, oh wow, the way that the light is shining through that bush, it looks kind of soft and fuzzy. But if you get close, there are spines all over this plant, and these spines have a trick. This plant, its special survival strategy for living in the desert is that instead of putting a lot of energy into making lots of seeds, it just will break off branches of itself to make new plants. So if an animal comes by and goes too close to this cactus, the little branch will break off and stick to the animal, and it sticks really hard.
So that's stuck to a hand, right?
That is.
Is that your hand?
That is my hand. I was weeding around the cholla cactuses that are in our yard, our front yard, and I accidentally got too close. And then I had a friend that was stuck to my fingers. And to get that off, you often have to ask for help because they stick so hard. And when you go to pull them, it kind of hurts. And so it's easier to have someone else just go 1, 2, 3 and pull out hard. But think about how this works in the desert. In the desert, if you have an animal like a coyote or a bighorn sheep and they get too close to a cholla branch, then it's going to get stuck to them, and it will be stuck for a long time as they are walking and walking. And finally, when it falls off, it will be in a new place. And then that little branch will send down roots. And now you have cholla cactuses growing in an entirely new place.
That's an interesting way of spreading yourself.
It is. It is. It's a good strategy.
And okay, so did it hurt to have the cactus?
Yes, it is not fun to get a cholla cactus stuck in you. If it happens, you have to pull everything out. It is not a fun experience.
In fact, one time when we were camping, Science Mom was off taking some pictures on a hill, and Did you kick it?
Our youngest daughter was 3 years old at the time, and she asked for a piggyback ride. And so I squatted down and I said, "Here, jump on my back." And as she went to jump on my back, she kicked one of those little cholla cactus branches, and it stuck right on my backside. And I had to hobble down the mountain, carrying her on the front of me, to ask Math Dad to please help pull it out, because I tried to get a couple rocks and like hold on either side and pull it out, and I couldn't get it out. It was stuck too hard. So careful of the cholla cactuses. But here's what the flowers of the cholla cactuses look like, and here's what the seeds look like. The seeds are inside a spiny fruit.
Ooh.
And this spiny little fruit is actually edible, but if you were to eat it, you would first need to take out all the spines.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Would you cook it, or would?
Yes, cooking it would probably be good. Pamela asks how to spell the cholla cactus, and shout out to Science Mom Krista. That's right, it is Spanish, and so it's a double L, cholla. All right, next plant. For our next plant, we have a tree, but it is a very unique tree. This tree is not like the trees that you see growing in parks and in people's yards in wetter climates. This is a tree in the yucca family, and it's called the Joshua tree. And it really can get tall and tree-sized. This is a picture of our card next to a large Joshua tree. That's one of the tallest ones I had seen. But oftentimes it will be a little bit shorter, and it has really cool leaves that are very long and thin. And these long, thin leaves, once they die, they actually stay on the trunk. So a lot of leaves, when they die, they'll fall off the trunk, but this one, they stay on, and they provide a shield all the way around the trunk that stays there. And I should explain this picture real quick. I wanted to take a photograph of the flower of the Joshua tree, and I knew they were blooming, but all the flowers were way up high. So I had my son stand on my shoulders and gave him my phone and said, "Here, take a picture." It was not my best idea, but we survived and nobody fell into a cactus.
But the camera was on the ground behind taking a picture of you.
We had 2 cameras.
Oh, okay.
Now, the Joshua tree has a really cool relationship with a moth. And this moth only pollinates the Joshua tree, and the Joshua tree is the only source of food for the moth.
Oh, so they're really good friends.
They're really good friends, and they depend on each other completely. So if you look at the flower of the Joshua tree, those white flowers right there that grow up at the tips of the branches, those flowers are kind of a unique flower. And to get an idea of just how different they are, we have to take a closer look. Check out these pictures right here that show you just one of those flowers taken off. And then that middle picture on the side, we took off just one petal. And then the bottom picture has all the petals removed. And you can see that the parts of the flower that have the pollen, they're tucked way down in there, way back in. And the only insect that can pollinate the Joshua tree is this little moth right here in the center photo. And when the moth goes in and pollinates, it also lays eggs. And some of the seed pods, when you look at a Joshua tree and find seed pods, some of them will always have these little holes where the caterpillars came out after they had spent some time in there eating and growing and getting bigger and bigger. And then they fall on the ground. They go underneath, and they're in a pupa for more than a year, and then they come out again the next spring as a moth, and the whole cycle starts over again.
So it seems to me like this Joshua tree is like a cross between a tree and a cactus somehow. Yeah, it's just kind of weird. I don't even know how to describe it.
It is a different type of tree. Something cool about the Joshua tree, when you see one, you can tell how many times it's flowered, because each time it flowers, then it splits and you get new branches.
I saw somebody asking if we were going to draw the cholla.
We are not going to draw the cholla cactus in this one, but I will be sharing some little drawing tutorials on later. We are going to draw the Joshua tree though. I was a little worried that it would just take too much time if we drew every single plant. So we're just going to do 2 little drawing lessons today. And let me just grab that file real quick. And here is our little lesson for drawing a Joshua tree. Here you go, Math Dad. Here's your, oh no, it's the wrong one.
Wrong file, Science Mom.
No,
I can do
Just
that
a
one
second,
again.
you guys.
I can finish my first picture if we play it twice. All right, and to those of you in the chat suggesting that I should eat a cactus, ixnay on the cactus eating. Okay.
Okay. I hope it's here, Math Dad. Oh no, it looks like it failed to download. So
yeah, this is the same file twice.
I do. So Math Dad, because it's a technical difficulty day, 1, 2, 3, go. You've just got to do it and show everybody your best drawing skills. Can you draw
a Joshua tree?
A Joshua tree leaf and a Joshua tree flower? On your mark, get set, go. The Joshua tree leaf is very thin and long. It almost looks like a blade. So here's my little drawing that I did. And you can just draw a really long oval and then draw 2 points at the bottom, 1 point at the top, and connect them. All right, show us your leaf.
If this looks more like a flower, then it's a flower.
Okay, so it's a flower. And for the flower, it's a long kind of tubular flower, and the petals are really close together up at the top. And then for our seed pod, we just kind of have like a big football-looking thing. And now for my plant, I drew a plant that had flowered once, and that split it so that had 2 branches, and now it's flowering a second time right here. So if we were to come back a few years later, there would be a second little fork in its branches right there. Kind of cool. All right, Math Dad, show everyone your work.
Ta-da! There's my Joshua tree.
Now, that's not a bad drawing of a Joshua tree, but do you think Math Dad would have better drawings if he took more time?
I sure hope so.
Definitely. Definitely.
I think with art, that's always the challenge, though. You have to be patient. Artists really are very patient people who can take time on projects, and I need to have a little more patience.
So we have looked at 3 plants: the Joshua tree, the creosote bush, and we have not looked at 3 plants yet. Oh, the cholla cactus.
Yeah.
And now for the next ones, we're going to go kind of quick. And I just want to point out a couple cool things about each of these plants, and then we're going to wrap it up. So the next plant that I want to show you is one of the most poisonous plants in the Mojave Desert. This is Jimson weed, or Datura.
Say that again,
Jimson weed, Jimson. It has beautiful white trumpet-shaped flowers, and they actually smell fairly nice. And it's a good plant for pollinators and for insects, but every single part of this plant is really, really poisonous.
Wait,
so if you see
to insects?
To us.
Oh, so it's poisonous to us, but the insects, it doesn't hurt?
To insects, it's just fine. Oh. Yep, certain caterpillars will eat it and really enjoy eating its leaves, but to people and to dogs and to cattle and to any type of mammal, it's very poisonous. So if you see the Jimson weed, long white flowers, this is not a plant to play with or to pick the flowers and put them in a bouquet. You want to just leave it alone. It's very poisonous.
Wait, what about bees making honey? Like, could this poison the honey?
Ooh, that's a great question, Math Dad. If the bees were only gathering pollen from Jimson weed and from something else that's poisonous, like oleander, the toxin actually would get into the honey, and the honey would be poisonous too.
Uh-oh.
But fortunately for us, there are lots of other flowers, and that is not something that happens very often. All right, so Jimson weed is our most poisonous plant in the Mojave Desert, so one not to touch.
So it's spelled like Jim and son, like a Jimson.
Yeah, like, don't eat that, Jim.
All right, Sonny, don't you eat this, Jimmy boy.
There you go.
All right.
And then our next plant is a flower that is one of my favorites. This is Desert 5-spot. Any guesses why it's called 5-spot?
No idea. You just made that up, though.
I did not make that up. That's the common name, Desert 5-spot.
I do see 5 spots.
5 spots. And it is a beautiful spring wildflower. There are a lot of wildflowers in the Mojave Desert in the springtime. This one has nice round little leaves, and depending on how hot it is, the leaves will either be green or they will be red. The red in the leaves is kind of like sunblock for the plant. It helps to protect it from the heat. And when they flower, they will make seeds, and then by the middle of the summer, you can't find this plant. This plant is not visible in the middle of the summer or in the fall because it comes up in the spring, makes seeds and flowers really fast, and then the seeds are dormant in the soil for the whole entire next year. A lot of plants have this strategy in the desert. Instead of trying to have lots of shallow roots or really deep roots and hang around the whole entire year, they say, you know what? This place is so hot, we're only going to be here for a couple weeks in the summer. We'll reproduce and make seeds, and then we'll just die and be done. We call that annual. They're annual plants because they only grow for they don't last for longer than 1 year.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I saw in the chat several people recognized the 5 spots right away. The 5-fold symmetry is just not something you see that often. I mean, if you were asked to draw a perfect pentagon, I think you'd really struggle.
It's a little bit trickier.
But this flower can pretty much pull it off.
Science Mom Amber has a great question. Do those spots help direct the bee to the pollen? I think they do. I think it is a way for them to signal to the insects like, hey, come right here. And with ultraviolet light, I think those markings are even more distinct.
Oh, that's right, because bees see things in slightly different colors.
Too. Yeah. And the cool thing about Desert 5-spot and all the other wildflowers in the desert is that if there is a lot of rain in October and November, then in the spring, in February, early February to March, you will have what's known as a super bloom.
Ooh.
A super bloom is when there is enough water in the soil that a lot of seeds will germinate, because a little tiny Desert 5-spot, and you can see this first one I showed, you don't even see the leaves. This is one of the smallest Desert 5-spots I ever saw. It was only about maybe that tall, and it was in such a dry area, that little seed germinated, and then it was like, okay, we only have enough energy and enough water to make one tiny little flower, let's do it. But that flower is then gonna make quite a few seeds, and those seeds next year, they are not all going to germinate. And so you have what's called a seed bank, where you have more and more seeds added every single year, but most of them don't germinate. And it's not until you get really wet weather and then hundreds of them germinate and you get just carpets of wildflowers all over the desert. This only happens about once every 10 to 20-ish years. And it kind of depends. Sometimes super blooms are really big. Other times they're smaller.
Super duper blooms.
We saw a super duper bloom back in 2017 in Death Valley, and it was amazing, but also very crowded because there were a lot of other people finding them as well. And then our last plant, last but not least, and then we will answer some questions, is dun, 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 dun.
She forgot, guys.
I'm finding it. Did we do 6 plants, Matt did? Oh my goodness, you guys, moving has broken my brain.
I don't know.
The last plant is missing. That's all we have pictures of. But there is a list of several other 18 in total desert plants, and also 2 of my favorite websites where you can learn more about desert plants. Now let's go back to the chat. We'll answer a few questions and then we will wrap up. So, Rebecca wants to know, why do the seeds stay dormant for a year? Oh, that is a great question. And it's because of the water. Because in the desert time, often from about April all the way through to August, you might have no rain at all. So that's months without any rain. And for a tiny little flower that doesn't have a very big root system, there's no way to survive that. And so the plant will make seeds in February, and then it dies. And then those seeds, they actually have like a little clock inside them that counts sunlight, and it counts temperature and cold. And it will only wake up the seed to sprout if it's gone through winter and had cold temperatures.
But so the next year, regardless of water, it will still bloom, or does it wait another year if it doesn't get the water? If
there's not enough water, well, the plant's kind of sneaky, and it makes its seeds all a little bit different. So some of them will bloom right away, no matter how much water there is. And if there happens to be water, then that plant survives. And if it doesn't, then that plant sprouts and then dies.
But others of the seeds will wait another year?
Yeah, a lot of them are very resistant to sprouting, and they're only going to sprout if there's lots of water.
Also, sometimes it's more than 1 year.
Yeah.
Very, very patient.
Very patient plants. Hassan asked if bees get poisoned from the white flowers, the datura plant or the Jimson weed, and they don't. Insects are not affected by that poison, and it's the same with oleander, another plant that's not native to the Mojave Desert, but that is a really popular plant in plant nurseries and in people's landscapes and yards. That plant is also incredibly poisonous. The bees don't mind it at all, but mammals, we have a really hard time with that toxin.
Like, just if you ate one leaf, you'd die.
Yeah, they're super poisonous. Science Mom Amber has a great question. Could you transplant those seeds to a different location like West Virginia, and could it be a houseplant? That kind of makes me want to try it. These desert plants are a little bit tricky to have as houseplants just because they really like dry soil and they like a lot of heat and a lot of light. And you'd have to have like a heat lamp and a really bright light, you know, just like 6 inches above the pot.
Yeah, I don't want to do the temperature variation as well. You said it had to get way hot, and it also had to get down to freezing.
It has to get cold. Yeah, they have to go through a cold period in the winter, and then they need pretty dry soil.
All right,
but
Science Mom Amber, no more ideas. Don't give her any more ideas.
And then Basics and Beyond Tutoring asked again, why is that flower not found in the summer? Because it's too hot. In the desert, we have spring wildflowers in the spring, but then in the summertime, it's only perennials, things like the creosote bush, that will have flowers. Great question. And I saw one more I wanted to answer real fast, and then we will. Oh, Kylie and Eiley have a great question. Why are these plants, and Ellie, sorry, Kylie and Ellie, why are these plants only found in the Mojave Desert? They have special adaptations to live in this extreme environment that is so hot and so dry. And so if you move them somewhere else where it is colder and it snows and it gets like a couple feet of snow, they can't handle that. They'll die because their cells can only survive a short freeze, not a long freeze. And if you put them somewhere really nice and green like West Virginia, there are molds and other roots in the soil that will recognize, aha, this plant has no defense against mold because it's not used to wet soil. So it's kind of a strange thing because most plants love wet soil, but desert plants, if the soil is too wet for too long, their roots will rot and get infected by mold, and then they'll die.
All right, so in the chat, I've seen requests for poll questions. What's going on with the beard?
Yeah, just for fun.
We're homeless right now.
We will have poll questions tomorrow because tomorrow we are learning about the Rocky Mountains and one of my favorite plants that I think everyone should be able to recognize, but is very difficult to recognize, poison ivy. So if you don't know poison ivy and what it looks like, then join us tomorrow to learn how to identify that plant.
Uh-oh.
Looks like